When we talk about Indian nationalism, we're not talking about just one thing. Not at all. It's actually this incredibly complex and honestly fascinating debate. Think of it like a conversation that's been going on for over a century, and it's still shaping the very soul of India today.
So let's just start with the biggest question of all, right? What does it actually mean to be a nation? Is it just about having borders on a map, a common language, or maybe a constitution? Or is it something deeper, like a shared history and culture? This single question is really at the heart of India's entire modern story.
The source material for this explainer gives us a really powerful way to think about this. It suggests that Indian nationalism isn't some finished product, set in stone. Instead, it's a dialogic project, basically an ongoing conversation. One with a ton of different voices and layers and perspectives, all competing and somehow coexisting.
Okay, so if it's a dialogue, who are the people talking? Who are the different voices in this big national conversation? Let's dive in and explore the competing ideas of what India is and what it should be.
To really get what's happening in the debates today, we first have to rewind a bit and see how this whole conversation got started. The idea of India as one single nation really started to come together during the freedom struggle against colonialism. But here's the thing, even back then, there wasn't just one kind of nationalism.
So, the conversation really kicked off with the moderates. They used very constitutional methods, making economic arguments against the British, but then came a huge shift with the assertive nationalists, folks like Tilak. They brought in cultural symbols, they mobilized the masses, and they totally changed the language of the movement. And then, of course, Gandhi comes onto the scene and transforms it all over again. He starts talking about the nation not just as a political thing, but as this inclusive moral community. And all the while, you've got revolutionaries like Bhagat Singh pushing for a super radical socialist vision. So you see, each one of these phases just added another crucial layer to what India could possibly mean.
Okay, so with that history as our foundation, now we can get to the real heart of the matter. These fundamental ideological clashes that are still defining the contested idea of Indian nationalism.
At the core of pretty much everything are two totally different ideas. On one side, you've got what's called civic nationalism. The idea here is pretty straightforward. The nation is a political community defined by its constitution and its laws. If you're a citizen, you belong. Full stop. But on the other side, you have cultural nationalism. This argues that a nation is defined by a shared culture, a shared heritage, a shared identity. And this isn't just some academic debate, okay? This is the central tension between two really powerful visions for what India is supposed to be.
The main person championing this civic nationalism was, of course, Jawaharlal Nehru. For him, India was a modern, secular democratic state. Unity wasn't about having one religion or one culture, it was about sharing rights and laws. In this vision, it became the bedrock of the new Indian Republic.
But there was a very powerful counter-argument. Figures like Vinayak Damodar Savarkar pushed for Hindutva, which is a form of cultural nationalism. It defines the nation not by its laws, but by a shared civilization, a common culture, and an ancestral land. So the key takeaway here is that these two visions offer completely different answers to that big question. Who is an Indian?
And believe me, the dialogue did not stop there. Other giant figures jumped in with some crucial points. The poet Rabindranath Tagore, for instance, warned against that aggressive Western-style nationalism, even calling it a great menace. Mahatma Gandhi argued for a kind of ethical nationalism based on self-rule and self-restraint. And B.R. Ambedkar, the main architect of the Constitution, made this incredibly powerful argument that, hey, political nationalism is basically hollow and meaningless if you don't have social justice and get rid of caste.
And here's where it gets really interesting. These historical debates, they are not just history. They are alive and kicking, and they are shaping the biggest political and social challenges that India is facing right now.
I mean, think about it. That old clash between civic and cultural nationalism, it's playing out right now in debates over religious polarization and caste identity. We see it in that constant push and pull between the central government and the states. And now, there are all these new forces making the conversation even more complicated. Globalization challenges local identities. And you've got digital nationalism on social media creating these intense echo chambers. And simmering under all of it is this huge problem of economic inequality, which threatens to pull apart any sense of a shared national purpose.
And this all raises a really tough, modern question. In a world of global brands and interconnected economies, can any kind of unique national identity really survive? I mean, every country is wrestling with this, but it feels especially urgent in a place as incredibly diverse as India.
So after going through all this, what's the big takeaway?
Well, I think the most important thing to get is that Indian nationalism isn't a settled fact. It's an unfinished conversation. It's this continuous process of debate and negotiation.
So how does this conversation move forward in a good way? Well, the source material suggests a path that's centered on a few key ideas. First, recommit to an inclusive nationalism, one that's based on constitutional values. Second, strengthen the federal structure to respect all the regional identities. Third, make social justice a top priority to tackle inequality. And fourth, really encourage civic education to build a sense of constitutional patriotism.
And this final quote, it just brings everything together perfectly. It suggests that the future of Indian nationalism isn't about finding one single final answer. It's about embracing the ongoing negotiation between its amazing diversity and its search for unity. The real foundation, then, isn't a single culture, but a shared commitment to constitutional morality, this idea that the values of the Constitution, like liberty, equality, and fraternity, are what should guide the nation. And that leaves us with a final thought. In a world that's changing so fast, what does it truly mean for us to uphold that morality?